morning, everybody, and welcome to the Financial Liaison Breakout session for PWC Executive Board Training 2020-2021. I am Sandy Murphy, coming to you from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, air assault. And I just want to tell you how excited I am to be able to help you as you get started being a financial liaison at your installation, wherever it is all over the world. From what we see, we have people from Army, Navy, and Air Force assignments, and we are excited to be able to present to you what we have found in our relationship with PWC, some of the key things to think about and pray about as you get started on this adventure for the next 12 months. So make sure your chat session is open, and if you have any questions, please feel free to add to the chat session. I am going to be using the handout that I provided on the hub. So please get that handout. Please take notes. And what we'll do is I will share my screen with you right now. So let me go in and grab that handout for you. And we are going to start. It's all about connection. And that's us. I know that you guys have each come here and have participated in 3 hours of your time today, which I appreciate. Your installation is going to benefit from your participation, not only in our morning session, our breakout session, but in our closing session. But you are going to find out how God has called you for such a time as this. And that brings us to our connection with God. We need to have a daily prayer life with God. We need to daily read the Word and study the Word. And by having a strong biblical understanding of the importance of relationship, you're going to realize that God has called you for such a time as this. And by you staying connected to God, God's constant presence in your life is going to help you keep your priorities aligned. So if you feel overwhelmed, you're not spending enough time with family or your husband or your children or too much with PWC, get back, connect with God, and keeping God as a constant presence in your life will help you keep your priorities aligned. And on that note, we're going to head into C, which is connection with others. Some of the key points you need to make sure that you highlight is that your executive board and your appointed board members will all need your support. You need to become an expert in the financial aspects of PWC for your installation, where you specifically are supporting. And you are going to train these PWC executive and appointed board members on how to utilize certain forms and use certain procedures to use money and collect money for PWC. So you're going to find out who your chaplain advisor is. The chaplain advisor is going to be the person who's going to connect you with the other installation members who support the funds team. And as we look at the funds team on number 3, we have a funds manager, a fund technician, and a fund card holder or mini card holders. Usually the fund manager is the senior chaplain who handles the financial aspects of your installation that deals with the chapel funding. The fund technician of the chapel is the NCOIC who handles the funds, and card holders are those soldiers, sailors, airmen who will go shopping and will swipe the cards for your ladies who have submitted purchase orders and go shopping on a purchase order request fund. The next thing you need to understand is there's an entire chapel support team. Every unit is different, every installation is different, but basically you could have a garrison chaplain. That is the individual who handles chapels and ministries. You have the ministry chaplain, who he handles specific ministries, could be PWC, MOPS, Catholic Women of the Chapel, various other support elements. You'll have a chapel non-commissioned officer who's in charge, and that's an NCO who runs a specific chapel building. And under him are religious affairs specialists who support the daily operations of ministry and chapels on your installation. You have a watch care supervisor or child care supervisor, and that is an individual who will work with your watch care coordinator for PWC in scheduling childcare and other requirements that you may need for children who attend PWC with their mom. And then we also have a director of religious education. A post director of religious education is an expert in religious education. So things like Bible studies, study books, online access to certain type of Bible studies, or also even an entire library of Bible studies. Your director of religious education is going to be your one-stop shop to help you make sure that we're not ordering extra Bible studies if we have an entire shelf already of those Bible studies. So let's think about our next group of people that we're going to connect with and build relationships with, and that's going to be our PWC attendees. Those are the ladies who show up every week or sometimes, and they see you, and they're actually going to be part of your funds team, and we'll talk about that later. And there's also other agencies that PWC connects with, such as other chapels. So you may meet in one chapel, but there are other chapels on your installation. You may meet in the contemporary chapel service, but there's also gospel service, traditional service, liturgical service, Catholic Women of the Chapel services. There's all types of different chapels on post. And by knowing those other chapels, you may be able to utilize them to support PWC in various ways. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Your Child Evangelism Fellowship, nonprofit, those are people who go around to schools and set up inside middle schools, and they share the gospel of Jesus Christ with middle school students. Here at Fort Campbell, we're very fortunate. Our Child Evangelism Fellowship team works with our school age room and provides a training lesson on the Bible each week during our PWC study. And this is something that you can look into at your installation. Have your executive board find out if there's a Child Evangelism Fellowship group near your installation, and maybe they can support PWC in some way. The Catholic Women of the Chapel, like I talked about earlier, they also have meetings. So maybe you could share meeting times with the Catholic Women of the Chapel, and they need childcare and you need childcare, and you could share the childcare costs. Churches off post, a lot of times churches off post will support retreats or conferences. And those are some great opportunities for us to reduce the cost of retreats and conferences by utilizing off-post churches to support the PWC that's on your military installation. Many of you probably heard of Planting Roots. If you haven't, check it out on the internet. It is a group of women who travel around the United States, and they bring conferences to large churches in major metropolitan areas. And when they do that, they advertise that they want military women to attend. So instead of coming up from the bottom up and creating a retreat or a conference, your PWC can connect with one that's already been planned and organized, and it will save a lot of time and money. The hub, which some of you have gotten a lot of your handouts for today off of, highly recommend you going to the hub. There's a networking group for each of the executive board members, and I highly encourage you to join that networking group for the financial liaison position. There's also Youth for Christ, which is one of the military-supported youth programs that are around many installations. Here at Fort Campbell, our Youth for Christ have done many things to support PWC. They have come in and done puppet shows. They support our summer programs. So think outside the box about other organizations within your installation's footprint that can come in and help your PWC reduce the operating costs, and also allow those organizations to use their ministry to minister to the ladies of PWC and their children. Another great ministry is Cadence International. Oftentimes they are located near a large military base, and they have a Cadence house off post. Many times those are large homes, and I have been in PWC executive board retreats. I've been at board meetings. I've been in summer Bible studies. So Cadence International is willing to open their doors to PWC and help spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. So don't overlook those other ministries. Let's talk about businesses, stores where PWC shops. Oftentimes these stores are willing to give a discount, or also if you order ahead of time, they may give you a discount in different shopping. However, make sure you check with your installation funds team first, because there are certain restrictions in any time we go shopping with government money. There are other businesses that provide food for PWC programs. Oftentimes these businesses will give a discount if you tell them this is for military. And we also have businesses that provide support to PWC. These could be maybe a business that wants to donate t-shirts, or a business that has handbags, or something they have in abundance that they want to just give you to give out to the ladies of PWC. Oftentimes you'll get Bible study books, journal books, things of that nature from print companies that will just want to give to people in the military. So these are ways we can reduce our cost footprint. Let's look at other military groups like the Spouses Club. Here at Fort Campbell, the Spouses Club has a grant request option each year. Starts about March, and you can submit a request for a grant to help your ministry on post. Now that grant won't be able to be used until the next year, but that way you can already set up your next year's PWC with some funding, because the Spouses Club is willing to reach out and help you with a grant. Family readiness groups, they have meeting areas. They also have ladies to invite to PWC, and they will also come in and educate your PWC women on different things that go on around post. And also our military units. We have military units that come in and support all kinds of ministries in the chapel, and they can support ministry at PWC also. So encourage your executive board members, your appointed board members, to think outside the box when they're getting support, requesting support, and not just use the ladies of PWC, but there's a whole network of people around your installation and in your installation that want to support your PWC for the year. So now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Connection with procedures. So study about the position of financial liaison. And the best way to do this is the specifics of your installation. I know many of you are asking questions about how your installation only allows you to do this, or you're restricted, and that's just the way it is. That's why I can give you an overview, give you some ideas, give you some thoughts about thinking outside the box, but you have to educate yourself about the position at your installation. So find out if there's a pass-on book from the person who was a financial liaison last year. Ask your chaplain advisor and the funds team, are there any standard operating procedures on how to handle money? Ask your executive board, what are their expectations of you as a financial liaison? And if you're able to, talk with the previous financial liaisons at your installation. Even if that person has moved on, social media today can connect us all over the world. So find out who that financial liaison was. And if you can't find a pass-on book or any kind of standard operating procedures that were left behind, send them a text, send them a message, and see, maybe it's hiding in a closet somewhere. But I would tend to think there's something there. It's just maybe hidden. And by talking to a previous financial liaison, you might be able to find it. All right, so let's talk about the hub again. Get on the hub. Read and use the resources that are provided. There are people from all over the world for years that have been adding and updating and refining these PWC board resources. My husband always said, if we would run some of the things in the chaplain corps, like PWC has run in their women's ministry manual, things would be a lot smoother. And so that speaks a lot to what's available on the hub. So look at those board resources, look at those training workshops, and by all means, read the women's ministry manual from front to back and see how financial liaisons are interacted and work together with all of the other PWC positions. So on number 2, let's get to becoming familiar with your installation's financial procedures. There's something big called a Command Master Religious Program. The big thing about the Command Master Religious Program is that this program, and I'm going to read it, is the Family and Soldier Readiness document for religious support programs. So the commander of a unit, the commander of an installation, has a Command Master Religious Program. And PWC is within that program under the family support element. And you need to make sure that the needs of PWC are in that Command Master Religious Program. And that's where you go back to your advisor again. You work with your president and the rest of your executive board members to make sure PWC has a footprint in that Master Religious Program. And then from that Master Religious Program, there are monthly meetings called Chapel Program Advisory Committee. It's called CPWOC. Every month, there's a meeting to discuss the money situation for your specific installation. It is imperative that your president and you and your chaplain advisor go to these meetings, because the balance in the checking account of an installation chaplain's office changes, just like your checking account balance changes. But if you've come up with a budget where you're going to need $10,000 next month, you thought you had $10,000 next month, your programs lady thought you had $10,000 next month, all of a sudden you find out 30 days before your program that money went away. Now you've got to readjust. And that Chapel Program Advisory Committee, the CPWOC meeting, is where you're going to find this kind of information out. So the more you're advised, the more you're informed, then you can better prepare your PWC ladies for what's coming up in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and so forth. So if there was a sheet that was on the, let me see if I can find it. I'll just reference it. It's called the Financial Liaison Cheat Sheet. It was on the hub as what document to download. Kind of take a look at the terms to know on that cheat sheet, especially when it talks about the CPWOC. These are meetings that cover your CTOF, your chaplain tithes and offering funds, for a pre-established period of time. Remember, your PWC, or at least your chaplain advisor, is a voting member of that CPWOC meeting. And that meeting will keep PWC's ministry at the eyes and the ears of the garrison and the command chaplains and the division chaplain, and make sure PWC doesn't get caught short on funding when you have something that you think is coming up because you've already budgeted for it. So the next thing we need to look at is the PWC budget development guidelines. Attend a budget training that is provided by the fund manager. Budgets can be very specific. One of the things, and I'm going to bring this one up, so let me see if I can close this out. I'm going to pause for a sec. All right, we're resuming our recording right now. I'm going to go in and I want to share a screen of our budget that we had on our hub page. So let's take a look at it. Now, sample budget breakout. So not every PWC is broken down into 4 quarters, and not every PWC works off a fiscal year program. But find out when your New Year's is for PWC. In the Army, we call it a fiscal year planning. Fiscal year starts 1 October. So actually right now we are in the 4th quarter of the fiscal year. So it is imperative that you know what kind of money is available to you now for PWOC. And from my experience, there is a lot of money usually available right now at the 4th quarter because it's called end of year monies. And PWC has just as much opportunity to utilize those monies for ministry as other chapel services and ministries on post. So have a plan. Make sure you don't take the summer off. Make sure your board doesn't take the summer off. Right now is when you obligate money. For instance, AF money, which is appropriated fund money, is where you can buy Bible study material and Bible studies. And it doesn't come out of your non-appropriated funds, which are those that are collected through the CTOF, the Chaplain Tithes and Offering Fund. If you can buy things with AF money, appropriated fund money, that's what you want to do. And some primary things you can do, purchase with appropriated fund is Bible study material, paper products, office supply stuff, furniture, high chairs, those types of hard things. But for your specific installation, talk to your funds manager on what you can purchase with AF money and with NAF money. So for your executive board, this is a simplified sheet that kind of says, all right, how do you want to spend money in each of these quarters? And make sure that they give you something specific. This is pretty broad, but I would want something specific, like spiritual life under 4th quarter last year should have put purchase Bible study materials for upcoming 2020-2021 PWOC. If that wasn't put in the 4th quarter, then your board right now needs to meet with the chaplain advisor and the funds manager to submit your request using appropriated funds to purchase your Bible study material. Purchase it for the whole year, because this time may not come up again, because this is end of year money. Take advantage of 4th quarter spending. Use that term when you talk to your chaplain advisor and your funds manager. But all of your other positions that you see here, like paper, cards, office supplies, those can also be purchased with appropriated funds. So make sure that you don't waste money from non-appropriated funds on stuff that could be purchased with appropriated funds. Beverages, non-appropriated fund, paper products, appropriated funds. You should become an expert on what can be purchased with what type of funds. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stop sharing. We're going to go in and we're going to share back to our original handout and just take us back to PWC Budget Development Guidelines. So attend a budget training by the fund manager. Understand what can be purchased with appropriated funds. Understand what can be purchased with non-appropriated funds. Understand the step-by-step procedures for purchase order requests. Fort Campbell Funds Manager puts out an SOP for purchase order requests. It is a step-by-step guide saying if you want to purchase something from Walmart in Oak Grove, you need to submit this purchase order through your PWC board no later than like 90 days before you actually want to go shopping. So know those specifics. Know what stores you can shop at. For instance, here at Fort Campbell, there's many Walmart stores. However, when the cardholder meets you at the store, we don't want the cardholder having to drive all the way out to exit 11, which is a 35-minute drive, when there's a Walmart 10 minutes out the gate. So when you do your purchase order requests, or your PWC members do, the funds office wants you to shop at the Oak Grove Walmart, which is 10 minutes from the gate, so our cardholders don't have to spend an hour or 2 hours driving somewhere. There are also options for ordering online, but specifically, it needs to be put through your installation funds office. Find out what you can and can't do. And then once you become that expert, you need to come back and educate and guide your PWC executive board in all financial procedures. So how do you request funds? That's what you're going to come back and train your executive board. Best to have some type of handout so they can keep it in their pass-on book and they can refer back to. So at 3B in our handout, executive board creates the budget within weeks of board installation. This is what we talked about. Use previous budgets and cost estimates from previous PWC boards, but also know when you can purchase through appropriated funds, end of year funds. Use AF money to purchase books, paper products, office supplies. Use NAF money to pay for watch care, food, etc. But again, you need to ask your installation how you can use AF funds and how you can use NAF funds, because each installation has specific requirements. So you need to go over the purchase order request guidelines with your board. Procedures required to go shopping with the purchase order request and how to coordinate with a card holder. One of the chaplains said, "Hey, you" doesn't work very well. That means if your purchase order has gotten approved through the process of your installation, you need to make sure you connect with that card holder who's going to meet you at Walmart to swipe the card. You should already be through with your shopping. You should be standing at checkout number 1. And then you call the card holder and say, "I am ready to check out at checkout number 1 at the Walmart in Oak Grove." And because that card holder already knew you were going to be at Walmart, hopefully they're within a 10-minute drive and they'll be there. Do not make the card holder wait on you. You wait on the card holder. And by you coordinating ahead of time, or whoever is doing the shopping, that's just considerate and making sure you minister from that relationship standpoint as a PWC board member. Your creation of a PWC calendar on number E. So PWC is going to meet when? Every Tuesday. You're going to have board meetings once a month on Thursdays. Make sure you have a timeline on your calendar on purchase order requests. For instance, if there's going to be a retreat in October, you need to tell the retreat person that all that paperwork has to be done 90 days prior so you can submit it through the system. Those are the things that you're going to provide to anybody who wants to spend money. And then what PWC is going to make sure is that the funds office has that calendar. So on Tuesdays, that chapel knows that there's going to be a chaplain tithe and offering fund collected. There's going to be a collection of money taking place at PWC on that day, because a sheet needs to be requested to do counting, and the tithes and offering has to be validated, and then it has to be deposited. So you taking up a collection at PWC requires a lot of pre-steps and post-steps. So make sure you coordinated with the funds office if you're going to do any kind of collection, and then that specific chapel and that chaplain NCOIC who supports you. Make sure to get training on how to collect funds. So this internal SOP on taking up an offering, make sure you write this up. How you take a PWC offering during a meeting. And you're not the only person on the financial liaison team. You've got a financial support team. So what your goal is you're going to go around and you're going to shoulder tap people and say, "Hey, would you be up for once a month helping count the collection after we take up a collection for PWC?" And you get a sheet of people who are willing to do this, so you don't have to use the same people over and over again. And don't expect the executive board or the appointed board members to support you in your fund support team. Find other PWC ladies, because remember, we're discipling people as we go along this year. And one of those PWC ladies who you shoulder tapped to support you in taking up an offering may be the next financial liaison. So You're always looking for your replacement. Margaret Bartleby talked about that earlier, and that is something you need to remember throughout the year. Find your replacement, and the best place to find your replacement is through that finance support team that you created by shoulder tapping PWC ladies throughout the beginning of the year. And one of the things you need to do is once you have your support team, you educate them on how to take up an offering. And in the Army, they talk like, we're going to do the meeting before the meeting. So practice it. Find the offering trays. Ask a chaplain or the religious affairs specialist to help you train these ladies up. Have them pretend to take an offering, come back into the control room where you're going to count, give them the requirements of never be left alone with the money by yourself, always be consistent in taking up an offering, and have calculators. Have a little storage box that has pencils and papers and calculators, because not everybody can count money in their head, and it's nice to have that calculator to validate you're doing the correct count. So when you educate on how to do up an offering, you're going to provide presentations to the PWC body. Don't you want to know where your money goes when you put it in that offering basket? I do. So what happens to the tithes and offerings that go into that offering basket on PWC Day? And so ask about that. Find your budget. Highlight it maybe in a nice little picture graph. Maybe there's some way you can present it on a PowerPoint slide. Not long. Just say, ladies, for every dollar you put in the offering, this is how we divide it up. Maybe it's 35% goes to childcare, 25% goes to programs, 25% goes to missions outreach. And that way you're educating them on how to do the PWC offering. So let's look at the next thing, not only the offering, but you want to educate them. Okay, I lost my place. Here we go. You want to offer them some education on why we need more money at PWC. And it's not so much the money from the offerings, but also service. Your service counts as money. Let me give you an example. If you have one lady, if you're able to at your installation, if you have one lady who has a background check and she's willing to serve one PWC day in the watch care room, that means we need one less paid watch care worker. Watch care workers are paid $15 an hour. So if we have a 3-hour PWC, what you're looking at is $45 every PWC that you're saving because you have one less watch care worker you have to pay. And if you could do 2 PWC ladies, you're saving $90 every PWC that you don't have to have 2 more watch care workers. So if people don't have the money to put in the offering, have them serve their time as ministry. And their ministry to the children of PWC is saving PWC money, which is an amazing way at looking at how to minister to the body of Christ. Because it's not just the executive board and the appointed board who's ministering. All the ladies are ministering to the body of Christ because we're building up disciples. Those ladies who are sitting in PWC are going to be tomorrow's leaders. And that's how we need to look at it. Make sure to provide specific examples on being good stewards of God's money. So if one of your board members wants to do this Chick-fil-A catering, but it's going to cost like $3,000, you might want to make a suggestion and going, you know what? We all love Chick-fil-A, but instead of that, how about we do a potluck? And then our food expense went from $3,000 to $0. And that's how you can educate these ladies on how to be good stewards of God's money. Make sure to take up an offering at every PWC event. This becomes consistent. Also, you're training the chapel staff that you're taking up a PWC collection every PWC time you meet. And they will have all their paperwork ready. And always remember to always pre-coordinate with them to make sure they have the offering sheet and they're ready to do counting and a deposit. Announce to the PWC body when there's going to be an offering, or if you're going to do a designated offering, find out from your installation funds office if there's a requirement that you announce that two weeks earlier. Also, make sure your offering procedures are consistent. If you're going to pass a plate, then pass a plate every time. Don't one day drop your money in the basket, the next day don't take something up, the next day pass the plate, because not being consistent causes confusion. And by being consistent, we can show these ladies that you have your act together, we know how to do this, and we're taking good care of the money that they have given to God for us to use for ministry. Now let's go to E. It talks about keep excellent projection and records of all financial transactions. Validate monthly your financial records with your funds manager, just like you do in balancing a checkbook, just like you do in checking your accounts on your credit card. Make sure that you have receipts, that everything balances out. You have expenditures, you have receipts, and everything has dress, and you've given copies of it all to the funds manager. So your records and the funds manager records are all balanced. A great example of that is one of our PWC financial liaisons was balancing her PWC checkbook, and she noticed she had $200 that they spent, but it hadn't been taken out of their PWC account. So she went over and talked to the funds manager, and sure enough, what happened is that receipt was put in somebody's inbox, but because of an emergency situation that came up, that receipt had not been processed yet. So the funds manager was able to get that receipt processed and balance out the money again. So you keeping a good checkbook will keep everybody balanced. Provide a monthly budget report to your PWC executive board. Let them know how much money they have. Let them know what they can spend, or especially if there was a situation where they thought they had $1,000 to spend on something and that money went away, you make sure you come back and educate your PWC board about that, and you guys might have to shuffle requirements around. That is something that happens in our families, and it's something that happens in ministry also. It is so good to forecast out our 1, 3, 6, 9, 12 months. Know how much money you want to spend for the final PWC in May when you do installation ceremony. If you're going to bring in a guest speaker and you want to pay them, make sure that's in the budget. Or maybe find a local guest speaker that you don't have to pay, and you just give somebody provides them with a gift, and find out from your installation funds manager what you can and cannot purchase when it comes to guest speakers and gifts. Identify any potential financial shortfalls. If there is no money to buy books for January's kickoff, maybe we need to relook what Bible studies we're going to have to teach in January. Maybe you have to do more online or DVD based. Those are things that you can prepare the board for before it becomes a crisis. Prepare to relook expenditures for retreats, programs, watch care. That speaks for itself. And request an internal and an external audit at the end of the year. This is important because you want to make sure that your finance support team balances your audit, your budget. Do that audit internally. You're training up the next financial liaison, remember, and by showing them how all the money has to be managed, they're getting taught and you're discipling them. But the other thing you want is you want the fund manager to do an external audit so they validate that what you've done is correct. And what that does is it provides PWC as a standing ministry with respect within the chaplain corps and also the installation ministry program. And then finally, you're going to finish well with a detailed after action report and a completed pass-on book, so you can make sure to hand off to the PWC president all the details from the past year, and that you're able to hopefully sit down with the new financial liaison and walk her through how to be a financial liaison in PWC. All right, I know that was quick. I see some questions up, and most of our questions we're talking about, it's about installation specific. Make sure you talk to your chaplain advisor and your funds manager at your installation on the procedures on how to do things at your installation. So let's go in and connecting it all together. What we talked about first is our connection with God. We are serving the Lord as we minister to others. And I'm going to switch to another screen real quick because I want to show you a scripture verse, 1 Peter 4:10. And one of the neat things is that God is the one who's got control over all we do. And we need to remember that as we step out and support women in the PWC. So as we're looking at connection to God, we need to remember we're serving the Lord as we minister to others. The next thing we need to do is connection with others. Hey, you does not work well. We need to make sure that we are thinking about others as we prepare our ministry. Because if we put others first and we consider what they have to do in their day-to-day walk, then we're going to be considerate of others and not put our beliefs in how the system should be done ahead of others, that we get together, we connect, and we work together as teams. And finally, our connection to procedures. You have not because you ask not. And I want you to look up in Proverbs 15:22, because one of the chaplains here at Fort Campbell told me a lot of times the financial liaison doesn't get involved in understanding procedures in the chaplain ministry. But you have to. You have to find out how to think outside the box. You have to be brave and go forward and say, hey, we would really like to do this retreat. We've done our homework. All we need is this amount of money. Is there any way that we can get this money? And one of the things, like we talked about earlier, is look at the other ministries on post and how they may want to support PWC. And I see that somebody brought up a point on in the chat section on sharing resources. We talked about that. If the Catholic women of the chapel have childcare for a meeting, if we schedule our meeting at the same time, we can share childcare costs. Maybe the gospel service would support a program for PWC where they come in and do the music, they do the devotional, and that chapel, that gospel chapel service provides the food. That way, what you're doing is you're keeping in step with the works of what the chapel system is doing. And the fourth aim of PWC, to involve women in the work of the chapel in keeping with their abilities and interests. So as we stay focused on our 4 aims: to lead women to accept Christ, to teach women the history and beliefs and programs of the church, to develop women in the skills, that's building your funds team, and also discipling somebody to take your place next year as a financial liaison, and to involve women in the work of the chapel in keeping with their abilities and interests. And that goes back to you shoulder tapping and making sure that these ladies are able to, or wanting to, be part of PWC. So, does anybody have any more questions on what we want to do? All right. So I'm excited about what's going on. I'm excited about each of you stepping up and being brave and taking on the financial liaison position. This video is going to be posted on the hub along with all the other executive board position videos. Please use the resources that are available on the hub. And if you have any questions, be part of the networking group for financial liaisons, and my email will also be part of that. So God bless you all. It was wonderful. And we're going to go back to Margaret in a little bit. So enjoy your day. I am blessed to be able to sit with you today. And please know that I'm praying for each and every one of you. God bless you.